Please welcome from Portugal, world number 14, Marcos Freitas. And the officials, time on the umpire from Qatar, Wisely Shahana. And the assistant umpire from Tunisia, Akram Ben Abia. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Marlon versus Marcos Freitas. It is the Seamaster ITTF Walter Qatar 2017.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the ITTF Seamaster 2017 World Tour Platinum Qatar Open, coming to you live from Doha, Qatar. I'm Adam Bobrow, and with me is Richard Prauza. How you doing, Richard?
Yeah, thanks, fine, and I'm still looking forward for lots of matches. We have a long day ahead of us, and I'm also looking very much forward to this game, Marlon against Marcos Freitas. We just talked in the break a little bit that Marcos Freitas is a bit trying to come back after injury where the muscle was partly broken. Didn't do too well in the last weeks, not qualifying for the quarterfinals in top 16, a little bit like coming up and down. But in this Qatar Open, he did well so far, having a close fight yesterday against Tomislav Puca from Croatia. And now will be challenging Marlon.
Right, now this is their fifth encounter head-to-head on the World Tour. Marcos Freitas won his first game on the World Tour in 2015 at the World Tour Grand Finals, losing 1-4, but other than that, it's been straight shutouts for Ma Long. You can see just right there, Fang Bo already moving on to the next round, the men's singles semifinals, which will be happening later today. Marcos Freitas, world rank number 14. He's the 12th seed in this tournament, and at 28 years old, you mentioned coming back off of injury, had quite a strong tournament at the Swiss Open, beating Junmi Zutani and making it to the final against Dmitry Ovtcharov. It's always interesting to see Dima versus Junmi Zutani, but Dima didn't have to face Mizutani as Marcos cleaned up on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah.
Now Ma Long, world rank number 1, the first seed in the tournament, also 28 years old. Still on top of the world, just hasn't slowed down. I think the conversation about when Fan Zhendong will take over the number 1 spot has been going on, and the predictions keep getting delayed. I would have thought by the end of 2016 Fan Zhendong was there, but Ma Long not softening up at all.
But Ma Long, he really improved his game. I mean, after he became world champion in Sushu, before it was always the king without a crown, and now it's very much, he improved the backhand. He's very much controlled with the backhand. And to my point of view, Fan Zhendong needs lots of time to catch up with that record.
Now, right now they're saying that the net is not, it's a little bit too high, it appears. And this is important. I mean, just the most minor of differences on the net. I mean, with the precision of the serves to the net in every shot, it changes everything.
And as you mentioned, the Swiss Open, if I have right in mind, the Swiss Association, they ask for putting the net higher to do some testing events in order to slow down the table tennis. And actually, we did a little bit of testing inside Germany, in Düsseldorf, in our center. And especially for service return, actually, it's totally different. So if you lift up the nets, let's say 2 centimeters, it's, well, a different sport with longer rallies.
Right, I know there's been a lot of conversations. Friends around the world have been asking me, hey, I heard a rumor about the net. So far, nothing is to be changed.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real, you know, they're always testing and trying new things to see what they can do to improve the sport. Listen to the grunts out here. Freitas really just getting into it. I mean, how often in the practice hall you hear, you know, Dima exhaling and you hear some grunts from Mizutani. But that was a bit unusual and interesting. I think it shows, we talked about the strength and the difference, you know, that while Marcos Freitas has the spinny shots, that power to power, Ma Long is just too powerful.
Definitely. I mean, Marcos Freitas will face the problem that here we see the coach Chin Chijian from Ma Long. Marcus Freitas will face the problem that usually he's winning lots of points in the spin-spin situation, coming back out of a passive game when he's far away, and against Ma Long, once you're passive, usually you don't come back. So we'll see. Marcus Freitas has this spinny backhand. Usually what he needs more is to follow up with a very, very forehand fast topspin, and that's something Marcos sometimes is missing too much when he let the ball drop too much down. Cannot accelerate too well on the second ball, but we will see in this match. Maybe he has a chance there when he's really going for the ball.
Looking at the facial expression there for a moment, Marcos Freitas seemed a little bit puzzled. Ma Long started off this tournament against Liao Chengting of Chinese Taipei with a 4-0 victory, and after that beating Li Ping 4-1. But the match with Li Ping, it's not the first time I've seen those two play, and Li Ping giving quite an impressive, I'd say, change of pace and clever placement throughout. Bit of a challenge for Ma Long, but still overall just too strong and steady. Ma Long physically fit, only 28 years old. So best of 7 match. Here we go. About to start it off. Marcos Freitas to start with the serve.
Already technically very, very advanced. You see first this return, so heavy backspin shot, and then this side spin, down spin block. Ma Long is known for that, especially when he's coming with the backhand into the middle.
We talked about the forehand flip earlier today. Just a few players in the game on the Chinese national team. Ma Long, Xu Xin, Zhang Jike occasionally with that short forehand flick. But this is one of the things that makes him so complete and so dangerous anywhere on the table.
And that's Ma Long as we know him. Service side spin up, sprint through the forehand, following up by a very, very strong forehand topspin. Very nicely placed through the middle. Usually Marcos Freitas has also not the best receive with the forehand. He will try also come more often with a backhand flick.
And it works out here.
But still you see, after this first backhand flick, usually he was blocking. Usually that's a chance to follow up with a strong forehand topspin. You see here, this ball, usually it's a chance for Ma Long to come back.
Right, and that's a real test of physical fitness, to get in for the short forehand with the banana, come back. And we talked about Ma Long's serve a little bit. I think a lot of people ask, you know, he's not as flashy with his serve. He doesn't have as memorable, like Dima has some of the most memorable signature serves in the game. Ma Long's quite subtle, but very difficult for a lot of players to receive.
The quality of the service, if you want... Did you try actually to receive Ma Long's service one time?
I don't think I've had him give me a proper serve, not yet. Maybe I'll ask him between matches.
You should try, because whenever you talk to the players, they say, okay, the service looks not so special, but the quality and the difference between upspin and downspin, it's so huge, it's so big.
Right. Yeah, there's no question the subtle differences on his serve. I mean, players around the world, the top players in the world, have trouble receiving them.
And that's exactly what usually Marcus Freitas is known for, coming back from distance with his backhand topspin 2 times, 3 times, and then in one moment, when you can see here in slow motion, when it has to be stepped in the ball, there he was a bit too late as the ball dropped down. Nice receive there. A little bit too high, the service of Ma Long there.
Now, you and I were talking a little bit about Marcos Freitas' backhand. And even though in the rally before this he had a strong counter loop, it still just felt like a counter loop rally pace for Ma Long.
Exactly.
It didn't put enough pressure on him.
Exactly.
And with the follow-up forehand to step around after. And this is what he needs. This reminds me actually a lot of Junmi Zutani against Xu Xin. He had been down, I think it was 0-10. This was after the Kuwait Open loss where he was down 4-10. Someone who knows he needs to put the pressure in early in the rally. He can't get off the table and he can't get into the too long into the rally.
Good one there. I thought the first spin of Marcos through the middle was a bit too slow, but then followed up with a good backhand, not that fast, but very nicely placed and very long the ball.
A little bit more passive from Ma Long. I think Freitas putting the pressure on there with the spin. Quickly coming in to capitalize and finish the point. Look at this ball. When have you seen a bend like that? Reminds me of the Wong Li Chin inside out forehands. This ball had so much side spin on it. This is a guy who knows he has to finish the point. Plays it soft for a moment, and the rally's going to go the other way.
You see this angle, unbelievable there. Very nice footwork for Marcus, a very difficult ball. 6-5 is up.
Wow. And this is a common thing we see with the underdog, a player right on paper. There's no question Marcos Freitas is the underdog here. He knows he has to go for uncomfortable shots and play a little bit above his average level, so he's going big, and you can't fault him for that.
And that's a bit also at this moment the Ma Long bonus. Many of the players, they overpowering, and then Ma Long gets some easy mistakes from the opponent. And if you do too many mistakes against Ma Long, difficult to catch up.
Right. I was thinking about that with service as well. When you're playing someone much stronger than you, sometimes players try to do a little bit too much with their serve, and you see more service errors.
See this ball from the middle. Either he had to do one step more to the left to play the backhand, or one step more to the right to play the forehand.
Wow, the short side for Ma Long, difficult ball.
And again, he started, Marcus. He was the one to be active. Then after this block, you see there he's not fast enough coming back. This ball was a chance for accelerating. After Marcos Freitas was not accelerating, Ma Long was the one. You saw the forehand flick. He's the one to watch.
He's consistent. If you want to learn it, that's right. Study Ma Long in pretty much every aspect of the game. So steady. I'm just trying to think, you know, occasionally he misses one, but he's so consistent with that forehand flip.
And he's so, exactly what you say, consistent. He's not missing this ball. You feel he's really the touch of the ball compared to Liang Jiankung when he was really missing and stressing these balls.
So that's 5 in a row now for Ma Long from down 5-6 to have 4 game points. Bit of, I'd say, pace. He gives it back. Yeah, Freitas knows he can't just block. He can't get passive. And it's tough to remind yourself that after the first shot, the second needs it too. Apology from Ma Long as he catches the back edge, but game 1 goes to the Dragon, the dictator, world rank #1, Ma Long. Yeah, for me, I watch players, you know, I know it's difficult when you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to play such an aggressive shot that when the ball comes back, to remind yourself you have to do the same thing again, several shots in a row.
And the question is whether the best players, they are ready to leave the comfort zone. Usually many of these players, and Marcus is known for that he's able to play so consistently.
Right.
But once you're playing against a player like Ma Long, of course you have to risk a little bit more, and then that's ending up by doing 2-3 mistakes. He was doing well after 2-5, being 6-5 down. You remember this unbelievable counter loop against the backhand topspin of Ma Long. But then again, the next ball was backhand miss, and then suddenly Ma Long was on his way up.
Right. When I think what it is, the top non-Chinese players, right? You've got Junmi Zutani, you've got Dima, you've got Marcos Freitas, just a few others, Zhuang Zhiyuan. I mean, there have been a few upsets here and there. For me, Junmi Zutani to get up to 10-4 in Game 7 against Xu Xin was playing so aggressively and out of his comfort zone. And at the Olympic Games in 2016, in the team's event where he came back from down 7-10 to win 5 points in a row, he was putting the pressure on and playing out of his comfort zone.
Yep.
You know, Junmi Zutani and Marcos Freitas can beat most players in the world comfortably with their consistent mid-distance game off the table, but here it's going to take more.
Nice one there, and you see how big the angles were. And it started everything with his upspin service through the forehand of Marcos, and we said that before. The forehand receive of Marcos is not that aggressive, it's quite passive, giving Ma Long the chance to follow with his very strong forehand topspin. And he heard us, he said like,
yes.
No, I don't want to show Adam and Richie this forehand receive. I prefer to come with the backhand. But then again, what we saw also from Liang Jiankung, it's opening up the table to
right.
come back after this backhand flick. It's long way.
Yeah, this is a classic combination. Serve short to the forehand, and especially if they step around, you've got a big hole on the other side of the table. As solid as Ma Long is, blocking for a while, and he'll make this counter a lot with his backhand. FREITAS really trying to keep the pressure on.
But that's what he really improved, Ma Long. This control with the backhand, this acceleration with the backhand. Nice one, this time 2 times short. Coming up with a forehand topspin. Racket was high above the table. Now we see here.
As solid again as Ma Long is, if Marcos FREITAS is in near the table, it's just going to give a lot less time for Ma Long to react. Unpredictable. He doesn't show where he's going.
Yeah.
Against a right-handed player, we've seen many aces from Ma Long, and against the lefty, it's just going to jam him up into the backhand.
And you see, before I remember him in 2013, when Ma Long had to rely so much on his good footwork and in his forehand. But meanwhile, you see now against Marcos. Oh, very good from Marcos FREITAS there. This backhand loop directly on the service. That was a little bit high, though, I believe. Nice.
From that angle, didn't it just look like a very solid opening from FREITAS?
But meanwhile, Ma Long, he can control many players in the backhand. He can be passive very good. He can even come with a counter topspin there. So that's something really Ma Long improved. Gives him some extra technique, not only having to rely on his forehand. Marcos here not too happy. Not moving towards the ball.
For me, even though he's missing the shot, it's clear that he understands what he has to do. He's trying to make a big forehand from a ball played in the middle, not getting passive.
But you see there, this reaction shot of Ma Long was a very fast topspin of Marcos FREITAS, and he was just putting the ball in front, not coming up with the body. Technically wise, this is perfect. Oof. Look at this backhand, look at his movement. And not that long movement, and still able to accelerate that much. We can see here now, very nice acceleration there.
You could hear the sound, the crack of the ball. So loose and fluid as he goes through that whipping backhand.
Sorry, go.
Now, one thing I will say as far as chances against Ma Long to break his confidence or get him second-guessing himself a little bit. Side of the table, no questions, and FREITAS
No question.
takes the point there.
No, it should be 7-5. You see, even touching the net a bit here now.
All right, and the score has been corrected on screen.
Look at this. This is unbelievable. This feeling, because this block from Marcos FREITAS was really a good one. We will see here now. Not that easy, you see. Very nice touch, very low.
I was surprised he played it soft once again. You feel it's dangerous as soon as Ma Long has a chance to come right back up.
And it looks like Ma Long added quite a portion of feeling to his game.
That backhand once again, we see the apology. Not sure if it caught the edge or a little bit of the net.
I think in between the rally it was something, or during the rally it touched one time the net.
There it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. As soon as the opportunity, just give him an inch, and Ma Long's so quick to put the power on the ball.
Good service variation, this time long in the backhand of Ma Long. I mean, it seemed to me that Ma Long altogether is really dominant, and he found this dominant game, I think, after the World Championships in Suzhou, and still...
It almost sounded like it bounced a second time on the table. I thought the point was going to stop.
And still sometimes Ma Long gets under pressure, for example, against Yang Yong-sik or in some moments in the Olympics against Jun Mitsutani. You have to believe as the opponent that you have your chance, that in one moment the machine stops from Ma Long, that in one moment he gets hesitated.
I mean, as rare as it is, you know, we saw Ma Long only beaten once on the World Tour in 2015, and in 2016 he got beaten twice right around the same time by the same player, Xu Xin. So it's definitely possible. It's not easy, but he is human after all.
He's trying. This is like leaving the comfort zone, as we have been talking about, trying to come with his backhand aggressive flick. But then this one backhand aggressive flip is not enough. He has to come back fast enough for the next ball in order to attack the second. Then he gets a chance.
Right, well, that shot didn't go into play. I think this is the right decision. He can't be unhappy about making that choice. This is a player with a game plan who's willing, as we talked about, to leave the comfort zone and play a high-pressure game. Now, 2 game points for Ma Long on the receive.
Yeah. But this long receive was usually the chance for Marcus Freitas to start with a forehand topspin. But he was already in the movement in front. Here we see, surprised by the long push of Ma Long. That's giving the chance for 11-8. Now he's 2-0 up. Ma Long did good, and Marcus also did quite brave. But at the end, Ma Long seemed to me like altogether more complete, more having the chance of accelerating, not only with forehand, but also with backhand. And Marcus has to maybe try sometimes to have an aggressive receive with a forehand, to my point of view, not only relying on this backhand.
Right, I think one of the things that makes it so difficult for the players to receive strong with the forehand, it's just much more difficult to get wrist and spin to really increase the percentages of the shot going in. That's why we see the banana flick being so effective today. And it's always interesting to me to see what will come to the sport. You know, China sort of being the innovators in table tennis, finding new ways to dominate the game.
See, this backhand flick was not invented by the Chinese, but
Peter
it was
Corbel, right?
It was kind of Corbel did like this. Also, the generation before, players from Czech, actually they're using this kind of flick, and Patrick Corbel was the one who really came up with the next step. And then in one moment it was a bit out. Everybody was relying on short, and then the Chinese came up with his perfect style. Meanwhile, everybody's doing this. But again, the next step might be to have a little bit different service, a little bit of having a better short game through the deep forehand, because many players only relying on this backhand banana, not Ma Long. And that's something we should keep in mind. He can play this backhand banana flick, but not all the time.
Right, and all that to keep balance so that you can stay relatively central on the table, not afraid to be not to be out of position. Yeah, developing that short forehand aggressive receive could be the future of table tennis. We'll see. Oh, where did that come from? Freitas deep in the backhand corner, and Ma Long just smashing it right down the forehand side.
And I like this switching of the wrist there. When in last moment he moved him to the forehand, you see first this hook into the deep backhand. And then the last one was coming to the deep forehand there.
Yeah, Freitas doesn't want to be there after the first shot or two of the rally. This is, again, like Mizutani. Players like Freitas and Mizutani that are so comfortable fishing down most of the rest of the world have to catch themselves early on and get aggressive, come back in however they can.
But Jun Mitsutani did this extra step and winning the medal in Rio by improving the backhand, not only staying far away from the table. And that's also the goal Marcus Freitas has to catch up with. Trying to get closer to the table, not moving away, not to play too much this spin-spin. was a good try.
Once again.
And you see now one of the first times that he's using the forehand flick directly on the service. It's a bit more common that after the short receive, you have another time short from the opponent, then Ma Long is using the flick. But directly on the flick, I think it was the first time, directly on the service, it was the first time Ma Long using this technique. And that's what it's table tennis about. It's a bit like chess.
Right. Well, you can go on, I mean, as far as outlining that.
That's in the main thing is there with Ma Long. First of all, his techniques, they are really complete. He can do really all the different shots. But in one moment, the thing is when to do the shot in the right moment, to having the right decisions.
Right.
And one thing that is really remarkable from Ma Long, all the decisions, they are connected. For example, you have many players who are doing a flick, but they are not coming, doesn't matter with backhand or forehand, but they're not following after. Ma Long, you always have this match plan behind. The flick in the backhand from Marcos Freitas in order to expect the next ball in the diagonal, ready to come the forehand topspin. This connection is really remarkable.
Yeah, he definitely plays in combinations and has plans. It's like he's thinking moves ahead, so to speak. So back from the timeout, a quick point on the service. And this is one of the many ways when you say like chess, it is the thinking moves ahead and setting up the shots, sort of understanding what your opponent is likely to do if you do this shot. Well, you have to give him credit for getting aggressive as soon as he felt himself backing off.
And Marcos is doing it well. After this first receive, he's coming again with a good followed up backhand topspin, but then in the spin-spin situation, he's just like a bit too far away from the table, a bit too low.
Wow, he got the shot, the scoopy sort of wiggle around snake, and Ma Long stretching in the back court after that rally.
And usually Marcos wants to see more rallies like this when he's staying close to the table. Here, following up, counter loop, very, very good. Very close to the table, more aggressive. You don't see that often. Usually Ma Long is the one in this position.
And when we think about what it is that makes certain Europeans, very few Europeans, so competitive with the top Chinese players, looking at Timo Boll, for example, his timing and the fact that he could take the ball so early off the bounce, just like Marcos Freitas did the point before last. I mean, it's a timing thing, right?
Exactly. He's too close to the table there. Maybe he felt also the service was a bit high. Maybe we can see here in slow motion, and then exactly a very, very good push into this middle part.
And right at the baseline, too. It looked like Freitas was not expecting such a deep push, which took away a lot of power and forced him upright.
Yeah, again, the long service down the line. Marcos was not ready. A little bit upspin in the service.
This comes with confidence, his versatility. We talked about the touch game. Ma Long has pulled just about everything we could imagine out, and he does it comfortably.
Yeah.
Now here's a big shot, getting an aggressive right to the corner. Risky ball, but that's what it's going to take, and Freitas puts it down.
Yeah, very good. Very nice acceleration there. You see, coming really above the table.
It's funny how in some of these slow motion replays you can see how smooth and comfortable Marcos Freitas looked right there at the back. It's just like practice hall on the main table.
And meanwhile, this shot is so common to everybody. When some years ago everybody was starting, like everybody was not like that safe.
Still taking the risks, deep serve fast into the body.
And now we see quite some long service actually from Ma Long. Now Marcos Freitas also not the first long service.
I was having discussion at dinner last night about the visibility of serve and how players sometimes toss the ball back into the body a bit. And Marcos Freitas has a quite difficult serve to receive.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially for a right-handed player on the receive. You know, you got the left-handed player, it's a little bit more of an obstruction. Speaking of which, flash photography in the crowd. For those of you looking to come to the World Tour, please do. You have a chance to meet the players, but make sure that your flash is off. I think in Germany they say no flashlight,
No
right?
flashlight, exactly.
I love it. No camping in the crowd. No tents, no flashlights.
This
So
was a
close.
chance. This was a chance, I think. Because this receive Ma Long was not expecting after all. Probably he was expecting more to the deep forehand. And now a little bit too slow to come back.
Right, and these are the combinations that Ma Long normally plays. And Freitas trying out here, but just misses wide on the second ball. There it is. He didn't think that one was coming back.
Nice reaction there, very good control. Not just spinny this return, but very nice, like steered into the deep forehand.
It's very rare to see Ma Long not getting back to chase the ball, but so far in this match, it seems that he just hasn't been punished for it much before.
And now it might be a chance for Marcus as he's having his own service. Last time he took 2 points there.
Right. This is smart play. One more time to the backhand early in the rally before getting the big forehand into play. And Ma Long's starting to look, you can see him sweating a bit figuratively, like it's getting into his head. And just the fact that Marcos Freitas has won some of these, even the rallies.
And there, nice hook, not that fast, but nice hook. And Ma Long was not moving enough, had to open the side a little bit more.
Right, he tried to play across the body to the short side.
And this time the forehand flick, Marcos also can do it. And now it's 10-8 for Marcos. Very brave played, and he deserved it. Maybe Ma Long got a bit too passive after all. 10-8, but still Ma Long's services to come.
Right. Some of the most difficult serves in the world, arguably the most difficult, we'll see.
Will he come again with a backhand receive, Marcos Freitas?
Only time will tell, Richie. Top of the net, but he does, and it works. A bit surprised, too. He changes up the placement, goes into the backhand to keep it unpredictable, and gets his first game. I mean, this is only the second game for Marcos Freitas in his career against Ma Long on the World Tour. What a time to do it. So 11-8 for Marcos Freitas of Portugal.
And Ma Long was already on the winning streak in this way. Ma Long really, I had the feeling, had total control of the game. And then all of a sudden, he started to slow down a bit. Marcos felt that he has to keep going, he has to leave his comfort zone, and he did pretty well.
Yeah, it was all from the moment of those serves where he started coming back. I mean, mixed it up with the long service, some reverse pendulum, and there were a few quick points for Freitas at that point.
Yeah, after the timeout, first it's short service down the line into the backhand of Ma Long, and then later with the long service, you mentioned it. I think the long service was one thing, and the other thing was that he started to first opening with his backhand receive 2 times into the deep forehand of Ma Long. And then later on, it was enough to play a bit softer receive into the backhand because Ma Long would have not stepped around. Because the best shot of Ma Long is, of course, if he has a chance to step around to play forehand topspin from the backhand side. But now he stopped. He played this backhand, and this gives Marcos the chance to really come back into the game.
Right. You know, we talked about in Suzhou the 2015 World Championships how Ma Long found confidence, it seemed, and since then has almost been. But still, the one thing, his Achilles heel, is if you can get inside and slow down a bit. But he doesn't seem to be questioning himself out here. Quick, aggressive for the first point of the game.
That's very important now from Marcos' side to keep aggressive, not to slow down, to still be ready to leaving the comfort zone, to go for the ball. And then hopefully he's getting some easy points from Ma Long. The last match I saw where really Ma Long was a bit struggling, and to my point of view, really struggling, was against Yang Yong-sik in the singles after the team Rio. Because Yang Yong-sik also had the chance to keep the ball and to go for the backhand situation that time.
Despite missing that shot, I don't think that's the wrong decision for Freitas. Has the opportunity here, gets a third ball. He should, I'd say 80% of the time he makes this ball. It could also be the pressure of who's on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Once again, a flash in the crowd. Now that they've switched sides, it might be the same person. Ma Long standing where Marcos Freitas was. Yeah, Jung Young Shik playing so well at the Olympic Games, getting invited to the Chinese Super League after that. There's that in pendulum serve. But quickly he's back off the table.
And again, the better start for Ma Long.
This is what it takes, right? He's determined, and you see it from Freitas. It's happened a few times where after the point where he backs off the table and quickly becomes too passive, that he forces himself to be aggressive.
Exactly.
This isn't an easy ball, a fast, long serve to the middle, but he was so determined to do it, and it paid off. Once again, the forehand flip, not an easy ball from over the table.
Exactly, because the ball was a bit high but short, and he had to really move towards the table. For example, we see before in the beginning that Marcos misses his backhand. This was also because he was not stepping right inside, but Ma Long had so much moving forwards that he was not missing this ball. Sometimes with fields from outside, that's an easy miss, but it's never ever when you forget. It's very crucial in table tennis. If you want, you can count on the receives. Very often they are exactly on this part, like this middle backhand, where Marcos very often is coming with a bit easier forehand topspin, and very often it's diagonal, so many players are ready to attack on that ball. That's a classic way of playing against Marcos.
It's the second time I recall seeing the forehand flip from Marcos.
The first time when Ma Long was serving a bit more downspin, usually he's lying a little bit more on the upspin service or the no-spin service, but as we can see, trying to avoid the flick probably, trying to serve a little bit more with heavy backspin.
I think that is a good response to a player who just made a forehand flip for a winner.
Yep.
Saying, lift this.
And again, you see, after this long push, Ma Long would have been ready for the backhand topspin. This is like what I have been explaining about the combination, the connection.
And flip, this time nobody home on the wide forehand. Mixing up his placement quite a bit. Until the very last moment, it was tough to tell. It looked like he was going to go cross-court into Ma Long's backhand.
Waiting a little bit Ma Long to move.
Right. And that is the smart decision, right? Don't leave too early.
Ma Long is not moving that well as I've been seeing him before. Seems to me a very little bit tired, because usually after this, that's his ball. I mean, Ma Long was not ready for having the side spin from Marcos. He has to do this extra step.
Look at the body language after this shot, though, from Ma Long. In the shot before, you had a chance to see him sort of collapse. A little bit of frustration, but it is the frustration that, you know, figuratively sweating out here. It's where Ma Long sometimes starts to come unraveled a little bit, or his percentages go down, makes a few more careless errors, I would say, than usual, which are very few.
Yeah, and that's exactly, again, having changed the service. One more time downspin. Marcos Freitas cannot really open the ball. Then short long into the backhand, and that was a bad choice of Marcos. Should have been down the line or in the middle. Then Ma Long wouldn't have had the chance to have the counter spin doing it there.
Looked like a little bit of frustration there from Ma Long after the point.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to me too happy. Maybe he also feels a little bit the back afterward.
There was that one point early on when he brought, I guess, Freitas brought Ma Long into the table and then sent him deep back to the corner where we saw him stretching.
Yeah, now he's calling a timeout. He also feels it, that Marcos is playing well, that he's going for the chances. And to my point of view, he likes to talk with Chinchijan about the receives, about the different possibilities now, because Marcos, as we know him, have a very, very good own service. And he did quite often 2 points after all. We don't forget the long service. We don't forget the change of service variation with the pendulum service, his reverse service. Or maybe it's just to secure game number 4.
Well, we'll see. I think that is an important factor here for Ma Long.
Because I see here, Ma Long is not talking also too much. Maybe he just wants to gather himself, wants to slow down a bit, wants to get some extra concentration.
Yeah, sometimes a little bit of catharsis, a cleansing. You know, we could see the frustration. There were a few points in the last 3 where Ma Long looked to be a little bit out of the confident headspace that he has been in so much.
Because for everybody out there who is playing table tennis, if you have to keep up concentration in a best of 7 match on this level, that's really tough and that's really exhausting.
Right, and it could also be a factor. I mean, both of these players are aware of the other one. When you're 2 of the most famous players in the world, you know, Marcos Freitas just beat Junmi Zutani in the Swiss Open. So that could be something that Ma Long is aware of and realizes, hey, this guy's dangerous and he's hot right now. Especially 1.
I thought maybe it was a chance to have this steering block into the deep forehand again. But this time, reading the receive pretty well, the service pretty well.
And it seemed like he took the ball a little bit low. The timing was not exactly what Freitas was hoping for.
That's good.
Yeah, the forehand flip, what more can you ask for? I mean, the serve didn't seem like a bad serve, loaded it up with some spin. Ma Long comes right out of this timeout, and the thing is, it looks like he could push it. The way he comes into that receive until the very last moment, you don't know. So what a timeout it was, 3 points in a row.
Perfect timeout, exactly. And as you mentioned, this forehand flicked, it really looks like a small forehand topspin at the end. But in the last moment, he was deciding to do this. He's usually known to do this kind of technique, especially with the backhand. He's coming close as he's pretending to come underneath the ball as a short push. And in the last moment, he's turning the racket. He is doing, as many players are calling it, the Ma Long flick.
Right. The element of surprise is something that comes up a lot when I'm commentating. It's just so effective at this level because if somebody knows what you're going to bring, they're already prepared to have a response. But Ma Long disguising it so well, just like his serve. Anything he can do to leave no clue as to what's coming, the opponent is more puzzled and surprised every time.
And that's the secret behind, to have like always an answer, to keep the concentration up. As we had yesterday, for example, when Dmitry Ovcharov was playing against Yoshida, to my point of view, he was pretty much concentrated until that crucial moment in the 5th game when he was, after having 4-1 leads, getting suddenly some easy mistakes to him afterward to say, I just lost somehow the control, 1 service mistake, 1 bad receive there, and suddenly the whole game was switching in another direction. That's how fast sometimes the games can change.
Right, and also how 1 point can affect more than, it can cost you more than just 1 point. Mentally, you realize you've missed a shot or 2 and suddenly your head's in a different place.
Good flick there, but so safe, so stable there, the answer of Ma Long. And then the next ball, Marcos Freitas couldn't come back fast enough. You see 1 shoulder also a little bit low, not the perfect positioning.
off the top of the net. That is murder. Absolute murder. FREITAS chases everything down from the beginning of this point. Ma Long was grunting and hitting hard to the angles. This is the most work I've heard from Ma Long against lobs. And this is not a winning recipe for FREITAS, but he still doesn't give up, chases it down, and with a little help off the top of the net, picks up the pace on that low ball and takes the point.
So long the balls, the high balls of Marcos have been just like touching the white line, getting it very difficult for Ma Long to really get through. Marcos FREITAS like the human wall.
Well, this is a much better answer. Close to the table, quick off the bounce, playing corner to corner.
And maybe this long rally lifted up Marcos FREITAS to new heights. You never know. Sometimes small things, as we mentioned before, are changing the tides in a way.
And it's good. It's, you know, when someone gets far from the table and wins a point, it's easy for them to feel like, oh, maybe this is a way to win. But FREITAS knows, he says, I got away with the point from off the table, but reminder, Marcos, stay in at the table. And the next 2 points right away, very aggressive early in the rally.
And the body language of Ma Long is also not perfect right now, although he is up 3-1.
Still sticking to the game plan, though, of staying in at the table, getting in early in the point.
And that's much better. Much better starting the first ball not in the diagonal, not cross, but down the line to get a passive block back. Here, very good. And then to follow, doesn't matter, with forehand or with backhand. That's the chance. That's how everything should set up in order to be more aggressive from the point of view of Marcos FREITAS.
And in that replay, we saw the so-called passive block was still quite fast, but FREITAS ready with the backhand, ready for another shot, playing in combination, much like Ma Long has been in the past. The receive, a bit of trouble there. It's too easy of a third ball for Ma Long.
Yeah, this third ball attack, classic style, now changing the service. I think a bit no spin there, if I judge it right. But I mean, it's right from Marcos, not always to keep doing the same receive with the backhand, sometimes to have some change there.
I don't think he can allow himself to get too frustrated. It's understandable. He missed a shot he's capable of making. He's going for the right shots, though.
I'm sure Marcos feels that he has inside the rallies. It's not too bad the way he's setting up his game, but like he's for sure not happy in getting too easy chances for Ma Long, and that's what he was doing after being 4-2 up.
This is a very difficult ball. Ma Long completely spilling out on the table. Still, he just doesn't give up. Oh, another break for FREITAS. Yeah, but Ma Long, he just doesn't give up, and that's one of the many things on top of being world ranked #1 that adds to it, right? This isn't someone who says, look, I'm the best in the world, that's enough. He says, I'm going to give everything I can, all cylinders, all the time.
You see there, again, instead of playing the ball, first ball down the line, he started again in the cross, in the diagonal, and where Ma Long, also the backhand topspin of Ma Long, of Marcos was strong, but Ma Long was there with a counter spin. That's he has to think about for the first placement. Now it's about timeout for Marcos. He has to reconsider his receive. That was a bit too passive, second time with the forehand side.
When you think about his options, it's put yourself in Marcos's place. If he tries to play the push deep to the backhand, he's setting Ma Long up for his favorite shot. That step around forehand attack.
That's the better choice, because we have to keep in mind, after having produced 2-3 times into Ma Long's deep forehand with the backhand receive, the decisive change for Marcos when he won the game was when he was flicking a bit softer to the backhand of Ma Long, and now he came back to that tactique. Crucial thing is to catch Ma Long, to avoid him that he's playing his forehand from the backhand side. Nice, very good. Very good combination, like a combination I know from Timo Boll. And he started with a very good service, like easy service, straight service, one more time short. Flick, having this combination, fast to come back. Very good, nicely done.
What do you think the apology was for?
I'm not sure if something is like not clean touched. This is
Edge,
what
maybe.
happens sometimes, yeah.
Nothing not clean about that. Up 2 points now. FREITAS has really been fighting here.
And you see, this forehand topspin is not that strong, not that fast, I want to say, but quite spinny and a little bit side spin.
Right.
And that's not easy to take over for Ma Long. Too many direct service receives. He should go for the backhand receive one more time. You can see at the expression of the face.
And yeah, clearly not happy about the receive. Seemed like he might have wanted to try and shut down the third ball with a soft receive. Go for a fourth ball attack.
Too far away again. The ball dropped down too much. He should have, instead of moving backwards, he has to move towards the ball. Because again, this flick to the backhand side, this opened a chance for Marcos. But now again, you see here, much too low, too late.
And while everything you said, of course, would be helpful, Ma Long just pinning him right in the middle. You could see the placement perfectly on the body. Makes it very difficult for Marcos to get his positioning and keep moving forward into the table. And now the roles have changed a bit. FREITAS earning the ball up high over the table.
And this time not missing the ball as he was doing before. Better into the ball. These high balls, they are not that easy when you have to keep in mind to move towards the ball, not to let the ball drop down to the net again.
Too strong. The placement was solid on the serve. It was the third ball attack. I think he might not be happy about his placement.
Exactly, because you see, he was coming from behind the corner. He should have attacked the ball directly with a hand up, because after the service, the hand was first dropping down, so he had to go around the corner in order to spin the ball up. And that gave, and you see how fast Ma Long was turned around. He was turning around. He was expecting already that this ball would never come down the line, but had to come cross.
This is what you and I were talking about with Liang Junquin earlier on in Fang Bo, when the ball's at the back of the table, how the Europeans tend to let it drop a little bit lower.
Exactly. And this time he went for the direct backhand banana fast flick to the deep forehand, but Ma Long changed the position of the service. Instead of serving him short to the forehand, this time a little bit more short to the backhand. Maybe Marcos was also surprised about that.
Well, now match point for Ma Long. Second serve here to do it. There it is, beautiful backhand from Ma Long cross court in a challenging last two games, but 11-9. 4-1. Ma Long, the dictator, the dragon, has taken down Marcos FREITAS.
And what a way to finish this match with this backhand so far out into the deep forehand. You see, even over the cross. He was shaking a very little bit, but at the end he deserved to win. 4-1 to Ma Long, so he's through to the semis.
And there's the score recap on the screen. Stick around, we've got another match coming up, but we're gonna have a little bit of a break. You're watching the 2017 Seamaster Qatar Open, and we'll see you after the break.